Over my weekend, I'd literally just been watching videos, top 10 ways to be charismatic, how to never have an awkward silence again. And I'd studied the entire topic of charisma. I'd studied every single way that it was impossible for me to go quiet in a conversation. And so I was on class. This was Monday. It was the first class of the day. And I get there and the teacher's like, "Oh, how are you guys all doing?" But I'm sitting there silently. And for the rest of the class, when the teacher's speaking, I don't hear a single word she says because I'm too busy in my own head thinking about the conversation starters I'm gonna need to use to hold this conversation with this girl. Because for a little bit of backstory, bro, at this point, I had gotten so fucking socially awkward that I couldn't talk to people without memorizing conversation starters first. The class finished and I used the first conversation starter. I was like, I think I said, "Hey, how are you?" Something so small, right? We were walking and talking a bit, and I was trying to drag out every single point. I was like, yeah, and how was your day? Like, and then what happened? I was trying to drag every single conversation starter out because I genuinely couldn't think of anything more to speak about. And so we were walking a bit more, and I used my next conversation starter. And then I was only on one conversation starter, and I was trying to make this conversation go for as long as possible because it was still a couple minutes of walking to get there. And eventually we got to this point where I had nothing to say to her and she had nothing to say either, and we awkwardly walked. But to make it even worse, I was trying to say a sentence, but it just came out all mumbled. It all came out like stuttering and everything. I was like, "Oh, but how did you think about the yesterday? What?" And what I said didn't make any sense at all. And she looked at me like I was a weirdo. Just said goodbye, and I couldn't stop thinking about it for the rest of the day. It was such an awkward moment for me. But I've improved on that so much, bro. And here's some photos with my friends. I don't struggle to speak to them like that. By the end of this video, I'm going to show you how I went from struggling like really badly to hold a conversation. I needed conversation starters. I'm going to show you how to go from that to being able to hold effortless conversations and genuinely enjoy talking to people and not even have a single bit of worry. But by the way, bro, I'm going to be uploading tons of value that I don't put on YouTube on my Instagram, so go follow me there. You can message me, and if you have any questions, you want my personal help on making some better friends, because you might feel lonely. And bro, when I was lonely, that was the worst time of my life. I feel your pain. So if that's the situation you're in, message me and I'll make sure you don't have to be in that shit scenario any longer. This one time I was out with a group of my friends, and there was this girl. I hadn't seen her in like 6 months maybe, or quite a long time. And when I was speaking to her, I was started to tell the story, and she was losing attention. I was looking her in the eye, I was speaking, but I could see her looking around because she was getting bored of talking to me. But I did some things which completely changed the way that I had conversations. Because this same girl, a couple months later, I was speaking to her, and this time it just felt effortless. I genuinely enjoyed my conversation with her, and she wasn't constantly looking around to speak to somebody new. And I really enjoyed speaking to her, and I wasn't worried about the conversation ending. I wasn't stressed out the whole time. And I'm gonna explain with you what changed. So this one time I met this girl, and the first second I met her, she said, "Hey, what's up? What's your name?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm Finn. What's your name?" We introduced each other. And immediately, she started talking about what was going on earlier in her day. She started telling me this story about how this guy came up to her and her friends, and they were like, "Oh, so where'd you come from?" And she told me this random story. And you might think, "Oh, that's a bit random." But that's not what I thought. I thought, "Oh, wow, that's really interesting." And I was really engaged in this story she was telling me. And we kept talking, and she kept talking about things that were going on in her life. And this one time we were hanging out together because we became like pretty good friends. And as soon as I met up with her, she would start talking about what's been going on in her life recently. She would start talking about all this, all that. She would speak entirely freely and bring up stories about what's going on in her day all the time. And what I learned from hanging out with this girl was she was actually really social. She was really fun to be around. And that taught me that you should talk freely about what's genuinely going on in your life, about what you what's happened. Tell stories, and don't be worried about making sure a story fits in, making sure you're saying something at the right time. Because how many times, even in this video, have I just randomly said, let me tell you a story, and you've been interested? That is a perfect example of, you don't need everything to come together and make sense. You can literally just tell stories sometimes. You know, I was in this area where there's a lot of people my age, and I went up to talk to this girl, and I managed to hold this conversation. This was the longest conversation I held with somebody who wasn't a super close friend of mine in months, 5 months, literally. And the whole time I was stressing, I was worrying about how to make sure the conversation kept going. I wasn't genuinely enjoying it that much because I was putting so much pressure on myself to hold this, and I really didn't enjoy it. And what I learned from this was, it's because I was so scared of the conversation going silent. I was so scared of running out of things to say that I put so much pressure on myself to always be speaking. Same thing with this story from earlier on in the video with the girl that I was walking from class. And I would put so much pressure on myself to keep this conversation going that if it happened to end, or if it happened to get close to ending, I would get really stressed out. And one of the biggest differences between me talking, remember that girl I said I was talking to, she was losing attention, and then all of a sudden I was talking to her, really interesting, really effortless. I felt so different in those two examples because I'd become comfortable with silence. I always put in effort to, talk, start a conversation, but I'm fine with the conversation ending. Completely fine with going and speaking to somebody and, not really having that much to say and just saying, oh yeah, it was nice to talk to you, and going away. And I used to not think like that at all. I used to think it was the end of the world if I went silent in conversation. And this was genuinely one of the things that made conversations it made conversations so stressful for me, when it really should have just been an effortless task, something that I genuinely enjoy. But bro, you might still be struggling with this, and I've got a perfect method for you. I learnt it when my friend was speaking to me. I asked him, how'd you become so much more social? And for some backstory, he'd been struggling to talk to people all the time. He was very antisocial, and I noticed that, and I noticed how much he'd improved. He'd suddenly become really social. He started being able to hold conversations with me. And I wondered what had changed. And it was when I asked him, he told me something super fucking interesting. He said, one day, I sat down at my desk and I wrote down on a piece of paper, I want to make more friends. And he wrote out a plan. He wrote out, the first part of his plan that he needed to write out was that he needed a place to go. And he was already going out where there was other people for a run, 3-4 times a week consistently. And he said, but don't get too caught up on this, because if there's a place that you're going consistently, as long as there's other people that you walk past or you bump into, or there's literally strangers somewhere where you're going out, that is good enough. And he said, I wrote down a 3-week plan. And for this 3-week plan, on week 1 of me running past people, I planned to smile at everybody I ran past. He said, the first week that I was trying to smile and look everyone in the eye when I was running past them, I was super antisocial back then. It literally stressed me out so much. And I was trying, and I was getting a few times done, and sometimes I would miss it. But I kept trying, and eventually I was able to look people in the eye. And after week 1, he was somewhat comfortable with it. And so he moved on to week 2 of his plan. Every person he ran past, now he was gonna say hi. And he said, at first it was so fucking difficult, and he said it was something that he never dreamed of, just randomly saying hi to strangers. But he was managing to get it done, even though it was really hard. And guess what? By the end of week 2, he was fine with it. By the end of week 3, he was running past people. He was saying hi to all of them. He was saying, hey, how was your day? He was saying, hey, how are you? To all of them. And he said this sentence to me. After I'd done this, I felt a noticeable difference in every other conversation I got into. Because now I was so much more comfortable being around other people, when before it was such a stressful thing for me, and now he was completely fine with it. He said that his entire social life changed after he did this method. But bro, I get it. You might not be willing to put in the effort to do this thing. So, or you might be at a higher level where you're not as clueless as this guy. You're not struggling to look people in the eye. And that's alright, bro, because I'm above that level too, and I didn't use his method to become more social. I kind of did in a specific way, and that's what I'm about to explain to you. I got back for holidays, and I slept a night at my place, and I'd just gone back to my hometown, and there was this concert for the next day. So I woke up in the morning, and what ended up happening is this neighbor came past to say hi. And I was down there, I was talking to my mom, to my neighbor. And the thing is, bro, I was running out of things to say. She was like, hey, how are you? Like, how's things been going? How's school? Asking all these questions. But I was just genuinely struggling so much to hold this conversation with her. I found it so challenging. And later on that day, as soon as I got to this event, I started bumping into people that I'd met before. I was starting to be more social. I was making some jokes, but it was still really a lot of pressure for me. I bumped into a lot of people, and I met up with my friends. And by this point, I'd already gotten in conversations with 20, 30 people that I haven't even really met before. And then I bumped into all my group of friends, so 10 guys that I hadn't seen in months. And we were having a great time, great laugh, and I was really comfortable with these guys already. So I was having an amazing time. And my conversations they were still on top of the world, but they were clearly getting better, literally by the day. And by the end of that night, I was talking to everybody. I was starting conversations. I got this group of people. I was like, yo, let's go grab some food and some stuff. We all went to 7-Eleven, went back to the concert. And I fucking loved that night. It was one of my favorite days of my entire life. And the next day I went out to the concert, and it was also one of my favorite days of my life. Both days were just as good as each other. And what I learned from this was that if you just put yourself out there, you go to a really social event and you try and talk to as many people as possible, and you also slowly start talking, consistently, every day you're smiling at a few more people, saying hi to a few more people, you are guaranteed to become more social. You can take this slow method, which is what I recommend for everybody. But the method that worked for me, because I'm an impatient cunt, I can't lie to you, I just spammed going out. The only problem with this is that if you put this much pressure on yourself, you might not end up going out and doing anything at all. But bro, I got a question. Are you really going to take action, or did you just want to watch some video? Do you genuinely want to have good friends? Well, you know what my friend said to me about the method? He said, I tried to become more social for a year, for pretty much my whole life, but I never made any progress until I started writing it down. Remember the story of him going out for a run every day? Notice how he only started smiling at people, doing even the smallest things, only after he wrote it down and committed to a plan. And so the literal difference, he said it himself, as a guy who got success with his method. The difference between someone becoming successful with this method and not becoming successful and not making good friends is literally just writing it down. Pick up a pen and paper and write it down. Pick up your phone and your notes page, write it down. And just write down where you're going to go in a simple plan. To say hi. Just go with the same plan as this guy, because it's so easy that you'll get consistent easily. It reminds me of this time I was trying to get consistent with meditation, but I tried to meditate 10 minutes every single day. And guess what? I didn't get any bit more consistent in meditation every other day. But it was when I started meditating 5 minutes a day for a week that I became consistent. And then the second week I started meditating 10 minutes every day. And that's just an example of when you need to start small, because if you try and jump to the absolute most difficult task, usually we just don't get it done, or we procrastinate. But you know what to do. Write it down. And don't think to yourself, oh no, it's not going to make a difference, because it will. And the other thing you can do, which I recommend for anybody, even if you're using this method or not, but especially if you want like a faster result, meet some more people faster, have some like good social experiences, just invite a bunch of people out. Message 5 people right now. Hey, we should all go to the gym together. Hey, we should all go to the beach together. It literally doesn't even fucking matter what you invite someone to. Bowling, just to come over to your house, play some video games. Literally doesn't even matter. Just reach out and say like, hey, how you been, bro? Are you in the city? Yo, we should meet up sometime soon. Reach out to anybody. If there's some guy you talk to in class all the time, just ask him to hang out. You know, there's this crazy shortcut that nobody's talking about. There was this girl that I used to be like decently good friends with, but I'd lost touch with her. I hadn't messaged her in a year or something. But one night I bumped into her. I was out with my friends and she was there. And we ended up having a really good conversation. We ended up like clicking really well. It was really good to see her. And so guess what I did, bro? I asked her to come and meet me the next day. And guess what happened? We met up. You know, you might have been thinking there, oh fuck, she didn't meet up with him, you know, they were out of touch. No, that's a load of bullshit. We met up, we hung out for a few hours. It was genuinely pretty fun. And the only lesson here to learn is that people aren't gonna hang out with you if you don't ask, if you don't even try to invite them. And some really fun experiences can come just from you having the balls to just say, hey, yeah, we should meet up. There was this guy once, and I wanted to hang out with him, and I messaged him to hang out all the time. And he would always say, nah, sorry bro, I'm not free, or sorry man, I'm studying for exams right now. And now I know it's because he didn't like me. But all along, it wasn't a big deal because he was literally so nice about it. He never said anything bad about me to any of his friends. All he did was respond and saying, sorry man, I'm not free, I can't make it. And it was happily ever after I hung out with other people because other people wanted to meet me. And so what I learned from this was that you should never ever feel any pressure to not invite somebody to hang out. You should never be scared of somebody being like rude or disrespectful if you ask somebody to hang out. Because after all, an invite is like a sign of, oh, I like you, I respect you, I want to get to know you better. But bro, remember I'm going to be uploading tons of value on my Instagram. So click the link in the description now. You can send me any message. All of this might seem like a lot, but if you just click the link in the description, message me, I'll make you a plan and we'll get moving and I'll make sure that you make some really good friends. Because bro, I remember when I was lonely. It was the absolute worst time of my life. I genuinely hated my life. And I was always sad. I was always bored, like perpetually bored. Nothing to do, rolling around. And it was only when I made good friends where I started to enjoy my life. Have a great day, bro. Thanks for watching.